Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. That's what we do every day here on the WDW Pro channel. And lately, well, there's a lot to do with Disney, likely because Disney has historically been the king of the mountain when it comes to entertainment. But in the recent past, Disney has been stumbling, bumbling, and maybe coming off of that apex just a little bit or even more so. Joining us today to talk about one of these stumbles and bumbles by the Disney company is Views with Hughes, first time to the channel. Welcome, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, Mr. Pro, or as I should call you, Dub D. I'm glad to be here. Also glad to be here with all the viewers and everything. Hopefully, they'll enjoy my commentary and the thoughts that I had to share with this as well.
Absolutely. And folks, if you do like content such as this, make sure to click the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. We do covet your comments. We care about what you think, and your opinions really do matter. So please share those down below. Today, we are diving into an article by USA Today called Zippity Doo Done. Some fans are done with Splash Mountain. Here's why. This by Eve Chen, a proud graduate of Berkeley, and I think you can all guess where this is going. So, Views with Hughes, I'm going to read a little bit right here, and then I'll get your opinion on all of this. It's going to be quite the experience, or quite the ride, if we want to tie this into the attraction we're talking about. Yep. Splash Mountain left an indelible, that would definitely be true, indelible imprint on many Disney park lovers' memories, and some have had a tough time letting go already with the treating fans as if they just can't let it go. I mean, people were trying to sell the water. Self-described massive Disney fan, Didi Francique, recalled of the iconic ride's last day of operation at Walt Disney World. There was a memorial thing with people putting their Splash Mountain plushies right in front of it. Save Splash Mountain shirts, the last Splash shirts. By the way, that little typo there. Come on, Miss Chen, get this thing going. We got to get those typos out of here. Francique, who, by the way, we have no idea, or at least I have no idea who this is, so I really don't care what she says, opted out of the ride that day, but had ridden it countless times. When I was a kid, I didn't know anything. I didn't care. God, what a horrible child you must have been. You poor, devoid of any knowledge child. You knew nothing. You knew nothing, Francique. I'm telling you, this is something. Oh, it's he said. I apologize, Francique. But he began to feel differently over the years as he learned about the ride's roots in Disney's film Song of the South. That's when I was kind of like, this is very questionable. Let me just tell you, if your quote in a national newspaper is, that's when I was kind of like, this is very questionable. That sounds like you're a 13-year-old girl in high school. Good Lord. I'd be mad if somebody quoted me that way. Anyway. Yep. Views with Hughes, do you think that it requires someone to be completely devoid of any knowledge to enjoy Splash Mountain?
Man, if somebody actually enjoys it, they're only enjoying it by the name only, Splash Mountain. They don't care about their origins or anything, even if they don't know about it, okay? It's just another way for someone to go ahead and guilt trip either one person or many into not like avoiding the ride itself because of the history that's behind it. Yes, there's a history and everything, but it's basically based on one's perception of it. You know, is it really catering to is it really going to help people remind of the different eras of racism back then, even if it's slavery and all of that? It's based on somebody's perception. Okay.
Right. It's cartoon animals.
Yeah, give factual information, evidence. I want to see data and everything. I also want to see like who actually shared these things with the person to help us to figure out, or to see if it's actually true or not.
Exactly. The ride closed at Disney World in January and is expected to close later this year at Disneyland. Here's why some Disney fans are more than ready for its retheming as Tiana's Bayou adventure. All right, so then it's going to tell us why it closed. So again, Miss Chen here, Berkeley graduate, she's going to tell us why they closed Splash Mountain, and I'm going to tell you the real reasons. All right, here we go.
Hang on, is she an editor or just somebody who just wrote the story as a reporter?
She's just a writer in this case. I did a little bit of research to see if there were any connections to Disney. She's been working for USA Today for a while, and she's involved in all kinds of other activities, let's say, other goals beyond just journalism. But those tend to have a lot to do with diversity, equity, inclusion. So But here's what she says about why it's closing. Splash Mountain opened in Disneyland in 1989. That'd be a long run. And Disney World in 1992, introducing a new generation of Disney fans to Bre'r Rabbit, Bre'r Fox, and Bre'r Bear, which were first animated in 1946 Song of the South. And by the way, their personalities were developed by some of Hollywood's very first black movie stars who have since then been largely erased from history for political reasons. Imagineers have a long-standing history of making updates and enhancements to attractions and experiences so they remain fresh and relevant. And the retheming of Splash Mountain is of particular importance today, Disney said in a statement to USA Today. Tiana's Bayou adventure builds on the story of Princess Tiana, a character whose pride and perseverance reminds us of a universal truth. Within us lies the potential to make our dreams come true. This new concept is relatable, inspiring, and speaks to the diversity of the millions of people who visit the parks each year. Unfortunately for Princess Tiana, she is now being used as a way to stomp out the legacies and the histories of people like Nick Stewart, the voice of Bre'r Bear, essentially the first black voiceover artist in the United States of any renown, who his voice will go silent in Disneyland for the first time when that attraction closes on the West Coast. So, Views with Hughes, what are we thinking about all this so far?
I
agree. I concur. Oi.
I mean, okay, you're going to take it. You decided to take one thing that people have stated based on word of mouth and all of that, where from a, something that has a racial, they deem as a racial history behind it and all of that. And it's like they're going to take that and try to replace it with that, which they would assume would bring together a newer demographic of within the African American community.
Right, it's got to be more modern. And Princess and the Frog, that's going to reach out to all of those diverse audiences that Disney has managed to run out of their parks by raising their prices to exorbitant levels.
Yeah, not only that, but it's like exactly how many, like me being an African American man. All right, an African American man nowadays. I have several nieces and nephews. They're all black, of course. As well as the fact that I used to live in a predominantly black neighborhood at the time. And it's like whenever you hear about anything from Disney, from like Princess on the Frog, in this case, from where Tara's Mountain is going to be based from, it's just you don't even hear. I don't even hear anything about people that say anything about the Princess and the Frog, as much as the 90s kids said something about the Little Mermaid back in the 90s.
Exactly. It's an older property at this point. If Disney's going to be successful with this, they've got to resurrect that property as well. I guess they're going to try that with Disney Plus. Here's the next paragraph. Disney had not tied Splash Mountain's closing to Song of the South, the way an online petition garnering more than 21,000 signatures in 2020. By the way, the petition to save Splash Mountain had a vastly larger number of people who signed. So I hate journalism like this. I despise when people do this, when they tell one thing and they don't tell the more important thing. It ruins it for me, because I want to like Eve Chen. I want to support her. I want to give her all the support and happiness in the world. But then she's got to do this thing where she talks about, a petition that it's dwarfed by something else, by the counter argument. However, when Disney CEO Bob Iger was asked at a shareholders meeting that March if the film would be added to Disney Plus, he said, "I felt as long as I've been CEO that Song of the South was, even with a disclaimer, just not appropriate in today's world." And by the way, again, in my opinion, that is at the core of the issues that we face today. There are too many people in entertainment who think that their job is to curate and to, pardon the quote here, whitewash the past so that it's perfect and beautiful and we don't have to be exposed to it. The truth is that Song of the South is a historical film. I mean, it's a big-time historical film. It is the first movie to win an Academy Award for an African-American man, okay, that being the gentleman who played Uncle Remus, James Baskett. It is also the movie that got the first musical piece sung by an African-American to win an Academy Award. It is a majorly historical piece. So the fact that it's not on Disney Plus, I think, is a travesty, a tragedy, and just terrible for the Black community, for African Americans, because it's destroying, and we're recording this, by the way, on the last day of Black History Month, but it's destroying Black history. It's saying, no, this is too messy for you to be allowed to watch. And that's a problem. That June, Disney announced plans to reimagine Splash Mountain. with a Princess and the Frog-inspired theme, noting plans that have been in the works since 2019. And Views with Hughes, here's what really happened. Disney was trying to make sure that their Disney Plus subscriber numbers were going through the roof. They needed to do that. And if you'll recall, in 2020, there was quite the social uprising, and Disney was looking at other companies that were being boycotted by various demographics, and they said to themselves, well, we don't want to be boycotted. And so one of the ways that they decided to virtue signal was to say, oh, well, we'll change Splash Mountain. Now, how do I know that they didn't actually have a plan in place? Look how long it's been. It's now 2023. This thing is just getting started. It took them 3 years to figure out what to do after they announced it. They didn't have a plan in place. They had a blue sky drawing. That's it. Hughes, what do you think?
I got 3 points for that. For one, it seems to me like back in 2020 and everything, yeah, that was basically when everything was shut down. Okay. This was where, you know, everything has actually shut down. The parks shut down. People staying home, and they also saw that the Disney Plus streaming numbers grew up because of the fact that no one can go anywhere. Everything was closed, so they got to entertain themselves somehow. They got tired of Netflix and everything. HBO Max didn't even really roll out yet, and then it's like, yeah, what's left is Disney Plus, because you have Mandalorian as well as a few other classic Disney stuff, whether it be movies, animated shows, so on and so forth. Okay. And so they have no choice but they should have just added this up there, like you stated. But it's like, even with that, it's still going to be a bit too, in what their words, problematic. But that leads me to another point where, speaking of, like, it also reminds me of the business technique of color washing. That's just a strategy that based off of, like, that's basically profit driven, where they try to go ahead and then take these brands and falsely represent them with falsely represent their values as goods and everything, and services, in hopes of getting investors to come along as well as get the customer side on. Okay, what is this related to? ESG. ESG. If for those of you who don't know, it stands for environmental, social justice, and governance for businesses. Okay, and what they use this motto just to go ahead and then try to make a claim for social justice, environmentally sustainability, equality, and even diversity, where they're actually, in reality, they're just sugarcoating the status quo to continue to promote it. And in this case, I don't think Bob Iger was really meaning what he said when he was interviewed with this, when he was given that petition.
He's just virtue signaling, right?
Exactly. And not only that, he's just simply, in my opinion, and I could be wrong about this, but he could be virtue signaling because of the fact that a lot of the investors and everything at the time were down or on his back, or was hounding him. Either, if not him, then most likely Bob Chapek, because remember, Bob Iger was still at the company. He never left. He just took the backseat role of it, but he still played
and held his office too, Hughes.
Yeah, but he kept the office, playing puppet master. He's basically the Geppetto of Disney.
Right.
And
right. Let's
go ahead.
Let's dive in. We'll get a little bit farther, and I'll get your thoughts. But wait till you hear what the problem is. So here's the problem with Song of the South. Okay. According to Harvard professor and literary scholar Maria Tartar, who, by the way, I looked into, she has no connection with African-American folklore whatsoever. She is a professor who talks about Germanic fairy tales. What a job. She co-authored the Annotated African-American Folktales with Henry Louis Gates Jr. She says it's magnolias and moonshine. Though set in the post-Civil War plantation era, she said, it feels like a time of slavery, and it looks like a time of slavery. I don't know what that means, by the way. With black laborers, and they take this part out of the quotes. This is the stuff I despise. What was the real quote? Anyway, with black laborers singing as they return from the fields. Okay, Hughes, humor me with this, but I'm thinking back to the 1800s in Reconstructed South, and I'm just gathering that a lot of people prior to the modern era worked really hard, and they probably worked outside. I'm thinking that there weren't many cushy cubicle jobs in sky risers that are in Atlanta, let's say, back in the 1800s. So it doesn't matter who it was. If you were depicting that era, they were going to be coming back from the fields. You know, like 99% of the population was working out there to have food and to have shelter and to have clothing, and it came from the farm. Anyway, continuing. they've been engaged in backbreaking work, but it's never shown, and it's sort of romanticized. Again, this stuff they come up with. And you look at Uncle Remus, she says, where does he live? He wears cast-off clothes, and he's dirt poor, and he's also physically worn down. So did everybody in that era. Go back and look at pictures. Everybody from that era is worn down and dirt poor and tired. There's no plumbing. There's no air conditioning. It's humid. It's the South, she said of the film's hero.
Especially if it's in Louisiana, near the Gulf.
No. This one's from South Georgia, right? So Song of the South is based in South Georgia. Louisiana is where Tiana's from now, which creates its own new problems because there are no mountains in Louisiana.
Exactly.
Even so, she said, he becomes and I'll just let everybody read that one, a trope Spike Lee, among others, has criticized in films, who repairs the injuries in the white family and reconstitutes the white family at the same time that he's living alone. Victoria Wade, a Disney fan who was ready for Splash Mountain to go, notice they don't have anybody in here who was like, here's the reasons we don't like this. You're removing a historical attraction that has the recordings of the original Black voice actor of all of America, Nick Stewart. You're removing him. You're removing all these references to actual slave folklore mythology, and you're replacing it with something that you all created in a boardroom. But they don't have anybody like that in this article. And again, I want to like you. I want to like you, Miss Chen, but you're making this more difficult by not telling things in a fair and balanced way. Victoria Wade, a Disney fan who was ready for Splash Mountain to go, said, a lot of people like to say, oh, it was just the time. Well, we can no longer use that excuse because we're going to evolve. So if you disagree with Miss Victoria Wade, you are unevolved, Mr. Hughes. How do you respond now that you know that you are unevolved according to her?
First and foremost, she mentioned, go back to the part where it was mentioned about the time era was supposed to be
sure. And you look at Uncle Remus, where does he live? He wears cast off, and if you go above that, it feels like a time of slavery. It looks like a time of slavery. They've been engaged in backbreaking work, but it's never shown. Everybody was engaged in backbreaking work.
And did she actually mention that it was like in the 1800s and all of that, like post-Civil War portion? Because
it's briefly mentioned, but it's like they don't understand what real work and real life was like back then. They don't understand it.
First and foremost, like you were stating earlier, everybody was wore down clothes. It was like people who were basically living in poverty at the time. It wasn't just it wasn't just blacks who were living in poverty. There was also white people living in poverty as well. They were also wearing worn down clothing. And I'm not looking to defend or justify the slavery era because I hate it myself. But guess what? If you want to go ahead, if you want to go ahead and bring up slavery, make sure you bring up everything about it. Make sure you bring up the totality of it, and also be able to defend your points about this whenever you're comparing the movie to slavery, rather than just going on a visual assumption of it. Slavery ended in, I could have sworn, December 6, 1865. Okay, when exactly was the like post Reconstruction era? Which part of it was she referring to? She wasn't clear about that. The author wasn't clear about that in the article either. So they take one narrative, they take one big event, strip pieces down from it, they take it out and add it to their own thoughts and opinions, so that way they can go ahead and continue a narrative, which is the status quo.
That's right. And here's what people don't understand. Go back and read Thomas Hobbes. Find out what life was like before the modern era, before we had electricity and air conditioning, and we had a Walmart on every corner. Go back and find out what life was like.
If we were living there, we weren't going to last.
Yeah, and so here's the thing that people don't understand, and these individuals in the story don't understand. When you're going to look back in time at the condition of people, they may look like they're in poverty, they may look like they're struggling, and you might romanticize that. But what you're actually looking at is probably just people living, because the poorest person that you can find today likely lives in a better condition than the very richest 100 years ago. Now, that might sound crazy, but it's not. Think about it. Your poorest person probably still has a cell phone. Your poorest person still has access to running water. Your poorest person probably still has access to heating and air. None of that existed, essentially, 100 years ago, right? And definitely not 150 years ago. You have people who have a cell phone have access to all the information in the world that's non-classified. That is more information in your pocket than President Bill Clinton had in the 90s as the internet was being birthed. And so to go back way farther than that people just don't understand. And so then they take this idea of the Uncle Remus character, who, by the way, isn't even featured in the ride at all. He's nowhere to be found. But they take that and they equate it to something, when I don't think that Walt Disney was trying to do that at all. If you listen to Valerie Stewart, the daughter of Nick Stewart, she says that's not at all what Disney was trying to do.
Yep.
All right, so then they go through the story behind Bre'r Rabbit. They talk about how this is actual, real African folklore. This is what came over with the slaves. They told these stories. They go into all of that. But because Disney took it and Disneyfied it, right? Just like he did with Snow White, just like he did with Cinderella, just like he did with these other characters, they say that it's not authentic and it's not acceptable, and therefore it can't be shown on the parks. It shouldn't be shown on Disney Plus, etc. So, Hughes, how does it feel to know that the actual authentic African folklore is not allowed on Disney, unlike Snow White, which is German, unlike Cinderella, which is French, and we could go through the list, right? Those are allowed. We get to watch those. But because apparently Song of the South is not authentic enough with Bre'r Rabbit, Bre'r Fox, Bre'r Bear, because it went through that same Disney process, little kids don't learn any of those stories that for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years, all the little children learned about Bre'r Bear and Bre'r Fox, and all of that really did come from Africa, and we've lost it.
Oh, that's quite simple. Bob Iger, along with the rest of Disney, they want to go ahead and contribute to the status quo to appease the board members of the chair of the board, like people like from Vanguard and BlackRock. But they don't want to tell the whole story and everything. No, they don't want to mention about the fact that it's not necessarily accurate and everything, but also they want to keep out there the bits and pieces of details. In other words, acting the same way that they accuse their opposition of doing, ignoring facts, ignoring history, leaving out a few things from history. But the thing is, they're only selling this just to go ahead and get more check marks off of this, so that way the company can go ahead and make more money, and also so that way they can appease these investing firms. I can understand they care about money, but they're going at it about the wrong way.
Well, all of this seems to me to be manufactured. If you go back in time and watch, you'll find so many of the most famous African-American singers, musicians, singing and playing Zippity-Doo-Dah. And now we're all supposed to believe that suddenly that became a horrendous song that speaks to all the ills of society. It is no longer relevant, according to Disney. Officially, they've said that Zippity-Doo-Dah is no longer relevant. I only wish we could go back and tell Ray Charles to stop singing it because he didn't understand real, authentic African-American history.
I'll give some more kickers that they probably wouldn't want out there either, or they're not ready to talk about. Since that one professor who decided to bring up compared to slavery, and also Uncle Remus was a possible slave and everything based on his rundown clothes and all of that. Last I checked, there were those who were back then who were free slaves who were black. They went on ahead and owned other black slaves.
Well, it is, history is messy, and people of all backgrounds have done things they shouldn't have done. There are people of all backgrounds who are wonderful and amazing people. The other thing about that too is that slavery, in my opinion, is right up there with murder, because you're literally stealing another person's life. It was never justified. I don't know of any basis in the Bible or in Christianity for these people who supposedly believed in Christianity to do that, because you're stealing someone's life when you enslave them. But history is definitely messy, and the idea that one people group is better or one people group is evil based on ancestry or based on the sins of the past, I don't buy that, because I think that we're all individuals who deserve to be treated from that standpoint, and we're all divinely important.
Oh yeah.
Use last thoughts before we head out today.
Should I promote my channel right now? No,
you certainly should. It's a channel worth checking out.
I appreciate that. Dub D or Pro. I want to thank y'all for actually taking time out to listen to my thoughts, opinions, and commentary about this. If you enjoy the things that I say right now, I got plenty more of those in store at my channel, Views with Hughes, your gender-free news. It's a channel that share things in pop culture, with the news and pop culture, as well as the fact that I'm starting on brief current events and everything. Basically, I'm going to start reporting news that the other major news networks, the mainstream media, is not reporting. So be sure to check that out. That link will be in the description below. You're all going to put that in the description below,
Absolutely.
right? All right. Also, be sure to smash the like button to this video, because WW has shared a few good thoughts with me that I haven't even thought of before. And basically, he's my teacher. All right.
Well, that's a humbling thing for you to say. I think that your voice is incredibly important, and I'm so glad that you were able to come on today. So glad that you came on for the first time on the channel, and I look forward to having you again. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we really do want you to comment. We really do read them. We really do respond. Your opinion does matter. Folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.